The old cargo ship shook as it fell through the alien planet's sky. Fire burned on the wings. Inside, a young human boy, just 15 years old, gripped his seat with white knuckles. His name was Jake. He had sneaked onto a supply ship, headed to the edge of explored space. He didn't mean to crash, but now he was alone. The ship slammed into the rocky ground and came to a stop. Smoke rose from the broken body of the craft. Jake crawled out, coughing, bruised and scared. The air was thick, but breathable. Strange. Blue plants grew around him, and strange sounds echoed through the cliffs. He was on a forgotten planet, a dead one. That's what the old star map said, but Jake didn't feel alone. For hours he walked, trying to find help or shelter. The sun was setting when he heard something, a voice, weak, barely a whisper. "Help!" Jake froze. The voice wasn't human. It was soft but rough, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time. He followed the sound through cracked stone and overgrown ruins, heart-pounding. Then he saw her, a girl, an alien girl. She was chained to a wall inside what looked like an old temple. Her skin was a pale silver, glowing softly. Her arms and legs were thin, bruised, and scraped. Her long hair was tangled and dirty. She looked barely older than him, maybe 16 or 17. She raised her head slowly when she saw Jake. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "You... human?" she whispered. Jake nodded, stepping closer. "Are you okay? Who did this to you?" She didn't answer. She just closed her eyes and leaned her head against the wall. Her lips were dry. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Jake ran back to his crashed ship. It took him hours, but he found a little food and a water pouch. He returned to the temple, scared she might be gone. But she was still there, barely awake. He held the pouch to her lips. She drank slowly, then looked up at him again. "Why? Did you save me, human boy?" Jake didn't know what to say. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a kid who hated seeing someone hurt. "I couldn't leave you like that," he said softly. The alien girl smiled, just a little. Her eyes were strange bright purple, and deep like space itself. "You're kind," she whispered. "That's rare here." Each day, Jake came back. He shared food, water, and stories about Earth. She listened. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she cried. She never told him her name. Not yet. One day, she looked him in the eyes and said something strange. "You have a good heart. But this world, it eats good hearts." Jake frowned. "Then I'll fight it." She laughed, but there was sadness in her voice. "You're still a boy. You're not ready." "Ready for what?" She didn't answer. She only looked away. Another night, as Jake was getting ready to leave the ruins, she grabbed his hand. "I can't say much now," she said. "But listen to me carefully. Come back when you're older, when you are stronger. This planet, this prison. It's not what it seems." Jake stared at her. "You want me to come back?" "Yes, 7 years. That's all I ask." "Why 7? Her eyes glowed brighter for a second. "Because by then, they will come for me, and only you can stop them." Jake's heart beat faster. Who will come?" She looked around nervously. Then she whispered, "Too dangerous to say now, but you are part of this, even if you don't know it yet." Suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the cliffs above. Voices. Heavy boots. Jake's eyes widened. "Someone's coming. Run!" The alien girl whispered sharply. "They'll kill you if they find you." Jake hesitated, but her grip tightened on his hand. "Go!" Jake ran, heart racing, breath short. He didn't look back. He escaped into the night, hiding behind rocks until the voices were gone. But even as he breathed in the cool night air, one thing burned in his mind. Her words. "Come back when you're older." He didn't know why. He didn't know who she really was. But one thing was clear: Jake couldn't forget her, and he wouldn't. The stars were silent witnesses. Jake sat on the roof of an old space station, far above Earth, staring at the stars, waiting for one to speak back. But none ever did. He was no longer the small, skinny boy who crashed on a forgotten planet 7 years ago. Now at 22, he wore a pilot's uniform and had sharp eyes, a strong jaw, and calloused hands. He was a soldier now, but the same dream still haunted him, a glowing girl in chains, whispering, "Come back when you're older." He had waited, and now he was older. "Jake, what are you even looking for out there?" His squadmate Cole laughed as he walked past. "Still dreaming about that alien girl from your crash story?" Jake didn't reply. He just kept staring into the stars. They all thought it was a childhood fantasy. The records of that planet were gone, corrupted, and marked uninhabited. No one believed Jake when he told them about the girl in chains, but she was real, and somewhere she was still waiting. He had memorized her words, her voice, her eyes, even the bruises on her wrists where the chains cut into her silver skin. He had trained for this. He joined the space fleet early, worked the toughest missions, learned how to pilot ships alone, saved every permit, every map, all so that one day, when the time came, he could go back. And tonight, it was time. He had hacked into old military logs and found it, the location of the lost planet, hidden under a different name. Jake walked into the hangar. A small patrol ship stood in the corner, unmarked, fast, silent. He had one chance to leave without being noticed. As he climbed in and sealed the cockpit, he whispered to himself, 7 years. "And I never forgot you." The engines came to life. He entered the coordinates. Destination: unknown system, planet X-47, formerly known as Koran's Hollow. He looked one last time at Earth below. And then he launched. 12 hours later. The stars around planet X-47 were dim and cold. It looked just like before, dusty, broken, and full of ruins. But something felt different. Jake's ship landed softly near the same cliffs where he once crashed as a boy. He stepped out, now wearing a full tactical suit, armed with scanners and light weapons. But this time, he wasn't just surviving, he was searching for her. He walked through the stone paths, now covered in more moss and bones than he remembered. He found the old temple again, but it had collapsed. Only part of the walls remained. The chains were gone. So was she. His heart sank. Was he too late? But then he noticed something carved into the wall. Words, new ones. They were not there 7 years ago. It was in her language, but he had studied it. He traced the letters with his fingers. Still waiting, deeper below. His breath caught. She was still here. He pulled out a scanner. It beeped. There was a hidden energy signal deep underground, beneath the ruins. A tunnel system, locked, forgotten. Jake found a crack in the floor and climbed down, careful not to slip. The air grew cold and heavy. The walls were damp and covered in strange writing. He walked in silence for minutes, then hours. And then he heard something, a breath. Not his. He pointed his flashlight forward, and there she was. She stood in the center of a glowing chamber, her hands free now. Her body taller, stronger, dressed in strange armor made of light and metal. Her silver skin shimmered in the blue glow, but her eyes, they were the same. She turned slowly, as if she already knew who had come. "You came back," she said softly. Jake smiled, barely able to breathe. "I said I would." Her lips trembled. "No one ever keeps promises on this world, but you waited." "I waited 7 years," Jake said. "Just like you asked." She stepped forward. "And now it begins." Jake couldn't speak. He had waited years for this moment, but now, standing in front of her, he felt like a kid again. She wasn't the broken girl in chains anymore. The soft, injured voice he remembered was now calm and powerful. Her silver hair flowed over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. Her body had grown strong and tall. And the light in her eyes? Brighter, sharper, but still familiar. She stepped forward and gently touched his face. "I dreamed of this," she whispered. "Many times. But I didn't know if you'd survive long enough to return." "I had to," Jake said, voice shaking. "You told me to come back." She smiled, a slow and quiet smile that carried 7 years of pain, waiting, and hope. "I didn't think you would listen. Humans often forget promises." Jake shook his head. "I didn't forget anything." The chamber around them hummed with energy. Strange symbols on the walls flickered, reacting to her presence. The ground itself seemed to breathe. Jake looked around. "What is this place?" "This," she said, turning to face the glowing wall behind her, "is where they tried to erase me." She walked to a large door carved with alien symbols. Her fingers hovered over it, and it opened with a low groan. Inside was a hall filled with strange crystals, floating lights, and a massive throne made of living metal. Jake stared. "You were royalty?" She nodded once. "Princess of the Taran crown, until my uncle betrayed me." Jake blinked. "Your uncle?" "He wanted power. He convinced the council I was dangerous, that I'd bring war to our people. So they locked me away and erased my name from history." She looked at him, her voice calm but bitter. "They thought no one would ever find me." Jake stepped closer. "But I did." "Yes," she said, her eyes meeting his. "You were only a boy. But you were brave, kind. You saved me when you had no reason to." Jake's heart beat faster. He didn't know what to say. "You touched the chains," she said softly. "Do you remember?" Jake nodded. "They glowed. They reacted to your presence." "That should have been impossible." She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "Your touch broke the first seal." He looked down. "Why me?" "Because you're not just human anymore." Jake blinked. "What do you mean?" She let go of his hand and stepped back. "When you touched the chains, something ancient passed into you. A piece of my power. My bloodline accepted you. That's why you survived the crash, why you kept dreaming of why the planet allowed you to return." Jake's head spun. "Wait, are you saying I'm part Taran?" She smiled. "No, you are still human. But you're more than you were before." He swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" Her eyes grew serious. "Now we prepare." "For what?" She looked toward the ceiling. "They know I'm awake. The ones who betrayed me. The ones who fear me. They'll come." Jake looked around the chamber. "You can fight them now, right?" She shook her head. "Not yet. My full power is still locked. I need your help to unlock it completely." Jake hesitated. "How?" She stepped closer again, voice soft. "You and I must bond." He stepped back, surprised. "Bond? Like marriage?" She laughed. "Not quite. It's an energy bond, a soul link. It will awaken the last piece of my power." Jake thought for a long moment, then nodded. "If it'll help you, I'll do it." She looked him in the faded eyes. "Once the bond is made, you'll feel everything I feel. Joy, pain, fear. Will be one." Jake took a deep breath. "Then I'm ready." She placed both hands on his shoulders and closed her eyes. The chamber grew brighter. Suddenly, a shock of warmth rushed through Jake's chest like fire and light at once. His vision blurred. His skin tingled. He felt her memories, the pain of betrayal, the long nights of loneliness, the sound of his voice feeding her hope. The bond was real. When the light faded, they stood together, breathing hard, eyes locked. "I remember you, Jake," she said, "not as a boy anymore, but as the man who came back." Jake smiled. "And I remember you not as a prisoner, but as a queen." Jake woke up in the dark, gasping for air. His hands were shaking. Sweat covered his face. But he wasn't cold. He wasn't alone. Across from him, Kira Nari sat on the floor of the glowing chamber, her eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. Silver energy flowed around her like mist. She was meditating, but her thoughts were loud inside Jake's head. He could hear her now. Not her words, but her feelings, pain, fire, pressure, and beneath it all, fear. The bond was real. It wasn't just energy, it was connection. Jake stood up slowly, still getting used to the strange pull in his chest. His heartbeat felt like it wasn't his alone anymore. Sometimes it raced for no reason. Sometimes it slowed when he looked at her. It was like two lives trying to breathe through one soul. Suddenly, Kira opened her eyes. You saw it, didn't you? She asked softly. Jake nodded, confused. That burning city? The screaming? The black clouds? She stood, her face serious now. That was my home, Taran Prime, the capital before it fell. Jake swallowed hard. I saw you chained in front of your own people. They cheered while you bled. Kira looked away. My uncle made them believe I was cursed. He said my power would destroy the galaxy. They were afraid. Jake clenched his fists. And now, what will they do when they find out you're alive? They'll try to finish what they started. The chamber lights dimmed. A deep, vibrating hum echoed through the ground. Jake's eyes widened. What's that? Kira's voice was calm but cold. They know the bond has been completed. Jake turned toward the tunnel. They're coming? No. Kira stepped forward, her voice like steel. They're already here. Meanwhile, on the edge of the planet's orbit, a massive alien ship floated silently above the clouds. Black as obsidian, shaped like a dagger pointed at the ground. Inside, a tall figure stood before a glowing screen, his face hidden behind golden armor. Signal. Confirmed, he growled. She has awakened. And she is not alone, another voice replied, nervous. Should we deploy the shadows? The armored figure's fingers switched. Send the first wave. We don't need to kill her. Not yet. But bring the human's head back underground. Kira and Jake moved fast through the old tunnels. Every stone wall flickered with ancient energy. Some doors opened as they passed. Others groaned and stayed shut. Jake was breathing hard, not just from running, but from what he was feeling. Kira's fear, she wasn't showing it, but he could feel it. It was sharp cold, deep inside her chest. And somehow it hurt him too. Kira, he said between breaths, why does the bond hurt sometimes? She didn't look at him. Because we're not finished. Finished with what? The last test. The throne, Jake frowned. What throne? She stopped in front of a massive sealed door. Glowing symbols lit up as she touched them. This planet was once my trial ground. Before I could become queen, I had to prove my strength here. But they locked me away before I could finish. Now, we finish it together. The door slid open. Inside was a wide, round chamber. In the center stood a throne made of dark crystal and gold veins, hovering above the ground. At its base was a glowing platform shaped like two hands reaching up. Kira walked to the center and turned to Jake. This is the heart of Taran. If I sit on that throne without completing the bond fully, it will kill me. Jake stepped forward. Then tell me what to do. She took his hand and placed it on the glowing platform. Place your hand here. I'll place mine beside it. Together, we unlock the last seal. Jake hesitated. If we do this, she warned, our bond will become permanent. You will never be just human again. Jake looked into her eyes. I never wanted to be. Not if it means losing you. She smiled, and for a moment, the fear in her chest faded. Their hands touched the platform. A bright light exploded from the floor, and the throne pulsed once, twice, then shattered into millions of pieces. Jake's vision blurred. His body trembled. He saw flashes, a shadow creature ripping through cities, alien soldiers bowing before a silver-haired queen, his own face standing beside her in battle. a strange glowing mark on his chest. The energy wrapped around them both. And in that moment, Jake understood. This bond was never an accident. He was always meant to return. Asterisk. The stars above the planet turned red dot not because of a sunset, but because war had arrived. High above the skies of the dead world, black ships began to fall like burning spears thrown by angry gods. Silent at first, then screaming, a dozen of them, maybe more. No warning. No mercy. Jake looked up from the temple entrance and whispered, "They found us." Inside, alarms Jake had never heard before screamed through the ancient halls. The walls pulsed with orange light. Kira Nari stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter than ever, her voice sharper than steel. "They sent hunters," she said coldly. "The same ones who dragged me away when I was a child." Jake raised his weapon. "Then let's send them back in pieces." Kira didn't smile. Moments later, the ground above them exploded. Dust and rock fell from the ceiling. Shadows entered the temple, tall, thin, armored creatures with blade-like limbs and no eyes. They made no sound. Jake raised his rifle. "What are they?" Kira answered quietly. "They don't speak. They don't feel. They were made only for one thing: killing royal blood." The first one leapt. Jake fired, hitting its chest, but it didn't fall. It kept coming. In one swipe, it knocked Jake to the ground, metal claws ripping across his armor. Kira raised her hand. A blast of blue energy fired from her palm, slamming into the creature and burning it into dust. Another screeched and charged. Then another. Jake rolled aside and shot again, this time aiming for the head. The second one dropped. Kira spun, her hair like silver fire, and lifted both arms. The ground shook. Stone spikes burst from the floor and impaled two more hunters. Jake stood, panting. "They just keep coming." "They won't stop," Kira said, stepping beside him. "They can smell my blood." Suddenly, the floor beneath them cracked open. They fell deeper underground. They landed hard in a dark, wet chamber, cold and silent. Jake groaned and stood, rubbing his shoulder. Kira helped him up. "Where are we now?" Jake asked, shining his light around. Kira looked around slowly. This was the forgotten part of the trial grounds. "Even I wasn't allowed here." Jake pointed to an old door, glowing faintly. "That looks like an exit." But before they could move, they heard it. Not footsteps. Not screeches. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Close. From the shadows. A tall hunter stepped forward, bigger than the others, its body wrapped in chains, its claws longer than swords. Its chest glowed with red light. Jake aimed, but Kira stopped him. "Don't shoot. That one's different," the creature spoke. A broken voice, like metal grinding on bone. "You broke the seal." Jake narrowed his eyes. "You can talk? You bonded," the creature said. "You chose the queen. Now you must bleed for her." Then it charged. Jake fired, but the shots bounced off its armor. Kira yelled, "Fall back." They ran through the narrow hallway. The beast followed, crushing stone as it moved. Jake tripped, but Kira caught him, spinning around and slamming her palm into the wall. The corridor collapsed behind them, trapping the beast. For now. Back to the surface. They climbed out of a broken stairwell and reached the surface. Smoke filled the sky. Fire burned on the cliffs. In the distance, more hunters landed from ships. Jake fell to one knee, coughing. "How do we beat an army like that?" Kira helped him stand. Not alone. She reached into a crack in the ground and pulled out a small glowing sphere hidden there long ago. "What's that?" Jake asked. "The beacon," she said. "A call to those who still believe in me. The Taran rebels, the exiles, the forgotten warriors. If even one hears me, we won't be alone." She threw the beacon into the air. It lit up the sky like a second sun. Far above, one of the black ships turned and fled. Jake looked at her. Someone saw it. Kira nodded, and someone will answer. But below their feet, in the dark ruins, the chained hunter opened its red eyes again and whispered, "Next time, human, you die first." Asterisk lightning danced across the sky, not the natural kind, but made of energy. Red against blue. Light against shadow. Far above the ruins, the beacon still burned, shooting a signal of hope through the stars. But deep below, in the ancient heart of the world, something older than both Kira and Jake had begun to awaken. It wasn't just a call for help. It was a challenge, a test that had waited thousands of years for the right pair to stand before it. And now they had arrived. Moments earlier. Jake stood beside Kira as the beacon faded into the clouds. The air was heavy. The fires had slowed, but the ground still trembled beneath them. Did it work? Jake asked, brushing dust from his face. Kira didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes and listened, not with her ears, but with something else. Something deeper. Then she nodded. "They heard us," she said, "but the throne hasn't accepted us yet." Jake looked confused. "We've already bonded. We fought together. What else do we need to prove?" Kira opened her eyes. "The bond was just the key. The throne is the final door." He stared at her. "Then let's open it." The forgotten vault. They entered the farthest chamber, one even older than the heart of Ta'aran. Here, the walls weren't made of stone, but living light, soft gold and pulsing like veins. At the center floated a strange platform, with two seats carved from crystal, one small, cracked and broken, the other glowing softly, waiting. Kira stopped at the edge and whispered, "This was the seat of the first queen. No one has touched it in over 10,000 years. Jake stepped closer. "Why not?" "Because no one has been worthy." Jake turned to her. "And you think we are?" "I don't know," she said. "But I know we're the only ones left who can try." She stepped onto the platform. Jake followed. As soon as they stood together, the lights exploded, bright, blinding, hot. Jake felt pressure in his chest. Not pain change. His skin burned, but didn't blister. His blood rushed faster. His thoughts stretched beyond his own mind, touching hers again. But this time, they were not alone. A voice echoed around them. "Two souls stand where one should. A human and a lost queen." Jake grabbed Kira's hand. "Who is that?" Kira's voice shook. "The throne itself. It's alive." The voice continued, "You carry the bond, but that is not enough. The bond must face fire, or fall to ash." Suddenly, the throne chamber cracked apart. Stone turned to dust. Light bent around them. And in a flash, they stood inside a memory. The trial of the throne. Jake looked around in shock. He was in a massive hall filled with alien warriors, cheering, shouting, roaring. Kira stood beside him, dressed in royal armor, a crown glowing on her head. "What is this?" he asked. Kira's voice was tight. "My past, twisted into a test." In the center of the hall, a black version of Jake stepped forward, cold-eyed, scarred, armed with a blade made of shadow, and beside him, a broken version of Kira, chained and kneeling. The voice returned. "Face the fear of what could be. Prove your bond stronger than betrayal, doubt, or death." The shadow Jake charged. Jake had no weapon, but Kira threw him a glowing spear made of light. Real or not, this fight was everything. They fought side by side, breathless, wild, fast. Jake struck the dark version of himself in the chest, but it didn't fall. Only when Kira stepped in and shared her power with him again did the spear glow bright enough to break the shadow in half. With a final strike, both shadows vanished. The chamber returned. The light dimmed. And the real throne, whole and shining, stood before them. The voice whispered one last time, "The bond is true. The throne accepts you." As the light fades, Kira sat on the throne, her body glowing with royal power. Jake stood beside her, changed. A faint mark now burned on his chest, just above his heart. the symbol of the royal bond. Kira looked up at him, eyes glowing with golden tears. I waited years for you to return, she said softly, but I didn't know. You were always meant to sit beside me. Jake smiled and reached for her hand. I'm not here to serve a queen, he said. I'm here to stand with one. The crown did not rest on her head, that it floated shining above Kiranari like a star reborn. And beside her stood a human. Not the boy who once crashed from the sky, but the man who returned to finish what fate had started. Jake's boots echoed through the sacred hall of the ancient throne. The golden mark on his chest pulsed with the same light as Kira's crown. The bond was no longer hidden. The galaxy would see it soon, and the enemies who sent hunters, they were already here. Above the planet, the invasion begins. Dozens of warships now surrounded the sky. The lead vessel, a black leviathan, opened its mouth and released hundreds of hunters toward the ground. Inside it, the golden armored commander clenched his fists. Kill them both. Destroy the throne. Burn the planet. His voice was final, but fate had other plans. Back on the surface, the throne room shook violently. Dust and light rained from the ceiling. Kira stood tall, her voice calm but powerful. They're coming in full force now. Jake cracked his knuckles. Good, I'm ready. You weren't chosen for war, Jake, she said. You were chosen for heart. Jake turned to her, voice steady. Then let them see what kind of heart I carry. She smiled. Then fight beside me, not behind me. Together, they stepped out into the burning light of day. The land was already under siege, hunters crawling over cliffs, tearing through stone, marching toward the throne ruins. But they weren't alone. Suddenly, a flash in the sky. Dozens of silver ships appeared out of nowhere, sleek, curved, and shining with the symbol of the old Turan Empire. From them, alien rebels and warriors dropped down, dressed in ancient armor, raising flags Kira had not seen since childhood. One of them bowed before her and shouted, Your Highness, we saw your beacon. We stand with you. Kira placed a hand over her heart, then raised her arm. Defend our world. The final battle, the war began. Energy blasts lit the sky. Claws met blades. Screams echoed between mountains and temples. Jake and Kira fought back to back, her powers flaring like a storm. His weapons charged with new energy he never had before. Hunter lunged for Jake. He caught it mid-air and slammed it into the ground with strength no human should have. He blinked. Was that me? Kira laughed. Part of me lives in you now. You've earned it. Another beast charged. Jake and Kira moved together like one being. Every step, every strike. Perfect rhythm. They weren't two people anymore. They were the heart of a broken kingdom. Beating again. Inside the enemy ship, the golden armored commander watched the chaos, snarling. They cannot win. But just as he shouted, a strange light filled his ship. He turned only to see Kira standing before him, her crown burning brighter than any star. Your time is over, she said softly. And behind her, Jake stepped out of the light, carrying a blade made from the throne itself. The commander laughed. You think a human can kill me? Jake raised the blade. I'm not just human anymore. With one final cry, they struck together. The war ends. The ships fell silent. The hunters stopped moving. The sky, once full of smoke, began to clear. Kira stood tall, her crown now resting fully on her head. Jake stood at her side, marked, bonded, and no longer just a visitor to this world. The crowd gathered. The warriors bowed. A new age had begun. Later, in peace, Kira looked out over the green fields where once there was only dust. She turned to Jake. Do you remember what I said back then? When I was in chains? Jake smiled. You told me to come back when I was older. She nodded. And you did. Jake took her hand. But I didn't come back for a crown. I came back for you. She leaned into him. Then stay, not as my servant, not as my soldier, but as the one who brought me back to life." He kissed her hand and said the words she had never expected to hear. "Then I'll stay as your king."